I had been back from a 12-month deployment in the Middle East for exactly 20 minutes when my younger sister looked at me across my own kitchen island and told me to pack my bags. She didn't raise her voice. She didn't hesitate. She just said it like she was asking me to pass the salt. "Ethan needs more space," Mallory said, resting her manicured hand on the marble I paid for. "A bigger backyard, a better school district. This house makes sense for us, not you." I stood there still in my travel clothes, boots dusty, duffel bag by the door. My body was back home, but my brain was still somewhere between time zones. I blinked once. "You're serious?" I asked. Mallory gave me that look, the one she's had since she was 12, like the world owed her something and she was just waiting for it to catch up. "Of course I am," she said. "You're never here, you're single. You live on base half the time anyway. This house is wasted on you." I shifted my weight slightly, small movement, enough to feel the ground. Then I looked past her. My mother was sitting at the kitchen table. Beatrice Hayes, perfect posture, hands folded like she was in church, watching me, waiting. She gave a small nod, not even subtle, agreement. That's when I realized this wasn't a conversation. It was a plan. I took a slow breath and set my bag down by the wall. Same wall I had painted myself 3 years ago. Soft gray, clean lines, simple. Except it wasn't my wall anymore. The photos were gone, the frames, gone. The small shelf I built with my own hands gone. In their place, abstract art. Oversized, loud, expensive looking in that fake way. I turned slowly. Everything had changed. Different couch, different rugs, new dining chairs. Even the light fixtures. They hadn't just moved in. They had erased me. I walked a few steps deeper into the house. My house. The air smelled different, sweet, artificial. Like one of those candles people buy when they want their life to look better than it is. "Where are my things?" I asked. Mallory waved a hand dismissive. "Packed away, storage. Don't worry about it, don't worry about it." I nodded once, low. I've been in Army intelligence for over a decade. I've worked in rooms where people lied for a living, where every word had a second meaning. You learn to read patterns, body language, timing, tone. Right now, everything in this room was off. Too confident, too rehearsed, like they had practiced this. I turned back to the island. "My name is on the deed," I said calmly. Mallory leaned forward, slightly smiling like she had already won. "That's why we need you to sign it over," she said. "Today." There it was, not a request, a deadline. My mother finally spoke. Her voice was calm, controlled, like she was delivering instructions, not talking to her daughter. "Mallory is raising the golden boy of this family," she said. "Ethan deserves stability, a real home." I looked at her. "You mean my home?" She didn't flinch. "You have military housing," she continued. "You don't need this place. Be practical for once." Practical, I almost smiled. 12 months in a war zone, coordinating intel, managing assets, making decisions that actually mattered. And now I was being told to be practical, in my own kitchen. I leaned my hands lightly on the counter. "Let me get this straight," I said. "I let you stay here rent-free for a year. No lease, no bills, no conditions. Just help you get on your feet." Mallory rolled her eyes. "And we did," she said. "Now we're moving forward. By taking my house." That part she didn't say out loud. Didn't need to. I studied her face. No guilt. No hesitation. Just entitlement. Then I looked at my mother again. Still calm. Still certain. That's when she delivered it. "Sign the house over to Mallory today," she said. "Or you are dead to us." No emotion, no drama, just a clean, sharp line. I felt something settle in my chest. Not anger. Not even hurt. Clarity. Because in that moment, I understood something important. This wasn't about Ethan. It wasn't about space. It wasn't even about the house. It was about control. They thought I would fold. That I'd smile, nod, and hand it over to keep the peace. Like I always had when I was younger. Like I didn't want conflict. They were working with an outdated version of me. I straightened up slowly. My hands left the counter. No sudden moves. No raised voice. Just calm. Mallory was watching me closely now, waiting for the argument, the emotional reaction, the breakdown. She wanted a scene. I didn't give her one. Instead, I walked back to the front door, picked up my duffel bag, zipped it closed. The sound echoed louder than it should have. My mother shifted slightly in her chair. Mallory frowned. "This isn't a negotiation, Audrey," she said. "We need your answer now." I looked at her, really looked at her. Then I looked at my mother, Took them both in, memorized the moment, then I nodded once. Nod agreement, acknowledgement. I turned the handle, opened the door, cool evening air hit my face, and I stepped outside. No yelling, no argument, no goodbye. Behind me, I heard Mallory's voice, sharp now, confused. Audrey, what are you doing? I didn't stop. Didn't turn around, didn't say a word. The door closed quietly behind me. And just like that, the conversation was over. I walked down the driveway, boots hitting concrete in steady rhythm. Left foot, right foot, simple, controlled. The same way I moved through everything. At the end of the driveway, I paused. Looked back once. The house lights were warm, inviting, like nothing was wrong, like it still belonged to me. But something about it felt off. Not emotionally, structurally, like a detail didn't line up, a gap in the story. I couldn't name it yet, but I felt it. Deep, cold, calculating. I shifted my grip on the duffel bag and exhaled slowly. They thought they had just pushed me out, that I'd come back tomorrow ready to sign whatever they put in front of me. They thought this was leverage. They didn't understand the situation they had just created. And more importantly, they didn't understand me. Have you ever walked into a room and realized everyone in it thought you were the weakest person there? Right before they made the biggest mistake of their lives. Because that's exactly what this was. If you've ever had someone try to take what you built just because they thought you wouldn't fight back, I want to hear it. Drop it in the comments. And if you understand what it means to protect what's yours without saying a word, make sure you subscribe. Because this was just the beginning. I turned away from the house and started walking into the dark, a quiet certainty settling in my chest, completely unaware that the real problem wasn't what they had just demanded from me, but what they had already taken. I dropped my bag on the hotel floor and locked the door behind me. 2 turns, deadbolt engaged. Habit. The room was standard. Beige walls, generic art. A chair no one actually sits in. It didn't matter. I wasn't here to rest. I set my laptop on the desk and plugged it in. My hands moved automatically. Same routine I use anywhere new. Scan the exits. Check the windows. Listen. Quiet. Good. I sat down and stared at the blank screen for a second longer than I needed to. Something wasn't right. Not just what they said. Not even how they said it. The timing. Sign it today. That part kept echoing. People like Mallory don't do urgency unless they think they're about to lose something. So what were they trying to lock in before I could react? I opened my laptop and logged into my secure military financial portal. Multi-factor authentication, token code, fingerprint, routine. I had a top secret clearance renewal coming up. Financials always get reviewed. Debt liabilities, anything that could be used as leverage. My profile should have been clean. It always was. The screen loaded, and for a second I thought it glitched. My credit score was wrong, not slightly off. Wrong. I leaned in. 700, no, 6. I refreshed. The number didn't change. 612. I sat back slowly. That wasn't a fluctuation. That was a collapse. My eyes moved down the page. Accounts, lines of credit. Then I saw it. Home equity line of credit. $250,000. Opened recently. Balance $249,873. Almost maxed. I didn't move, didn't react. I just read it again. Then again, because numbers don't lie. But sometimes your brain needs a second to accept them. I don't have a HELOC. I don't need one. I bought that house in cash. No mortgage, no leverage. No debt tied to it. That was intentional. That was security. And now it was gone. I clicked into the details. Lender federal-backed institution. Account activity multiple withdrawals. Rapid. Clean. No hesitation. This wasn't one emergency expense. This was systematic, planned, executed. I felt something shift inside me. Not panic. Focus, tight, controlled, cold. This wasn't family drama anymore. This was financial compromise. I opened a second window and pulled my full credit report. Everything updated in real time. New inquiries. Multiple. Addresses linked to my name I didn't recognize. Accounts I never opened. But the HELOC? That was the centerpiece, because it required collateral. My house. I stared at the screen for a long second. Then I said it out loud. Show me the paperwork. I pulled up the county clerk's public records database. Every property transaction, every lien, every transfer, public record. Search my address. The result came up instantly. 2 instantly. There it was, a quitclaim deed. Filed, processed, recorded. I clicked it open, PDF loaded. And just like that, everything made sense. My house had been transferred, not sold, not refinanced, transferred to a trust. I read the name. Controlled by Mallory. I didn't blink, didn't curse, didn't move. I just kept reading. Because emotion slows you down, details don't. The document was clean, professional, no obvious errors. That's what made it worse, because sloppy fraud is easy to break. This wasn't sloppy. I scrolled down, signature line, my name, my handwriting, perfect. Too perfect. Every curve, every angle. Exactly how I sign official documents. I've signed thousands. I know what it looks like. This was a copy, a practice one, not a guess, not a scribble. Someone had studied it. Then I saw the notary stamp. I leaned closer. Name, seal, date, October 14th. I stopped, completely, because October 14th, I wasn't even in the country. I was at a forward operating base in Iraq. I remember that day. We were running a night op briefing. Zero chance I was anywhere near a civilian office. Zero chance I signed anything in person. I checked my deployment records, pulled them up side by side, confirmed. Location Iraq, time zone not even close. I looked back at the document. Notarized in the US, same day, same time window. Impossible, legally impossible. Which meant one thing, forgery. Not a misunderstanding, not a family disagreement, a federal crime. I scrolled back to the top. Trust name. Mallory didn't just want the house, she already took it. The demand tonight, that wasn't about getting ownership. That was about cleaning up the mess. They needed me to legitimize what they had already done. Retroactive consent. That's why it had to be today, before I checked anything. Before I asked questions, before I noticed. I leaned back in the chair slowly. My hands rested on the armrests. Relaxed, steady. This was bigger than I thought. Much bigger. Identity theft. Bank fraud. Wire fraud. Forgery. And because I'm active duty military, SCRA violations on top of that. They didn't just cross a line. They went past it and kept going. I closed my eyes for a second. Not to process emotion, to clear noise. Because anger is useless here. Precision isn't. I opened my eyes again and looked at the document. Every piece was there. Paper trail, timeline, intent, execution. They didn't think I'd look. Or worse. They thought even if I did, I wouldn't do anything about it. That I'd protect them, keep it quiet, fix it internally, like family. I reached for my phone, scrolled to Mallory's contact, then stopped. Not yet. She already showed her hand. No need to warn her. I set the phone down, opened a new folder on my desktop. Named it Evidence. Clean, simple, everything goes there. Every document, every record, every timestamp. I downloaded the deed, saved the credit report, pulled the transaction history. Screenshots, PDFs, backups, redundancy, always. Because once you move forward with something like this, there's no halfway. You either ignore it or you finish it. I checked the time. 2:47 a.m. The room was still quiet. Same beige walls, same empty chair, but everything felt different now, because this wasn't about a house anymore. This was about someone trying to erase me legally, while I was deployed. I looked back at the forged signature on the screen, my name, used like a tool, like I wasn't even part of the equation, and that's when it clicked fully. They weren't asking for my house. They were asking for permission to get away with stealing it. I exhaled slowly, long, controlled. Then I sat up straighter. Because this is where I'm comfortable. Facts, structure, accountability. I don't need to raise my voice. I don't need to argue. I just need to prove what already happened. And let the system do the rest. I stared at the screen one last time, locking every detail into memory. As the situation shifted completely in my mind, from a family betrayal to a calculated operation that required a very different version of me. I walked into the JAG office with a folder that didn't leave my hand. Monday morning, 800, no appointment. The clerk looked up, saw the uniform, and didn't ask questions. Ma'am, one moment. I stood there still, eyes forward. Same posture I use in briefings. No wasted movement. A few minutes later, a captain stepped out and waved me in. Major Hayes, he said, glancing at my name tape. What can I do for you? I didn't sit right away. I placed the folder on his desk, opened it, turned it toward him. Identity theft, I said. property fraud. While deployed. That got his attention. He sat down slowly and started reading. No interruptions, no small talk, just silence and paper turning. I watched his eyes move, line by line, detail by detail, the deed, the credit report, the HELOC, the notarization date. When he got to that part, he stopped, looked up at me. "You were in Iraq on this date?" he asked. "Yes, sir. You have documentation, I already attached it." He nodded once and went back to the file. Another minute passed. Then he leaned back in his chair, exhaled. "This is bad," he said. I didn't respond. He tapped the document lightly. "This isn't just fraud," he continued. "This is a violation of the Service Members Civil Relief Act. You were deployed. Your legal and financial protections were active." I nodded slightly. "I'm aware." He gave a short, humorless smile. "Good. Because whoever did this just stacked multiple federal offenses on top of each other." He started counting them off. Forgery, wire fraud, bank fraud, identity theft. And the SCRA violation alone makes this extremely serious. I stayed quiet because I didn't need confirmation. I needed structure. "What's the fastest path to resolution?" I asked. He didn't hesitate. "You don't go through local police," he said. "They'll treat this like a civil dispute." "It's not," I already knew that. "This is federal," he added. "You build your case, you document everything, and when you move all the way. All the way." That part mattered. "Understood," I said. He closed the folder and slid it back to me. "If everything here checks out, and it looks like it does, they didn't just make a mistake," he said. "They committed a crime against a deployed officer. That's not something the system ignores." I picked up the folder. "Thank you, sir." I turned and walked out. No wasted time, because now I had confirmation. This wasn't gray, this was black and white. And that meant the next step was simple: follow the money. I spent the rest of the morning setting it up. Secure communications, verified contacts, no shortcuts. By noon, I was on a call with a forensic accountant, not a general one, someone who specializes in fraud tracing. "Tell me what you have," he said. I gave him the summary, clean, direct, no emotion. He didn't interrupt. When I finished, he said, "Send me everything." I did. Within an hour, he called back. "You're right," he said. "This wasn't random spending. This was coordinated." "Walk me through it," I said. I opened my laptop and pulled up the shared screen. He started pointing things out. "Here's the HELOC disbursement," he said. "Initial draw. Then multiple transfers." The numbers moved across the screen. Clear, organized. "First major purchase," he continued. "Luxury vehicle lease. Porsche. High-end. Not cheap." Of course, I didn't react. He kept going. "Next travel expenses. Flights, resorts, multiple locations. Total around 40,000 for vacations." I stared at the numbers, still calm, still processing. "Then this," he said. "Large payments to credit card accounts." I leaned in slightly. "Whose accounts?" "Same last name as yours," he said. "Beatrice." I didn't blink. "How much?" He paused. "Significant. Looks like she had a lot of outstanding debt." I sat back. That was the missing piece. Not survival, not necessity. They weren't trying to get on their feet. They were trying to erase their problems. With my money, he kept scrolling. Smaller purchases too. Designer retail, home upgrades, furnishings. That explained the house, the new furniture, the decorations. They didn't just redecorate, they funded it. With $250,000 tied to my name. They spent almost all of it, he said. I nodded once. "I see that." He hesitated. "Do you want me to continue tracing?" "Yes," I said. "Every dollar. I want a full report." "Understood." We ended the call. I sat there for a second staring at the screen, not shocked, not angry, just clear. They didn't take my house because they needed it. They took it because it was the easiest asset they could exploit. No resistance, no oversight, just trust. And they used that trust like a blank check. I closed the laptop, reached for my phone, and right on cue, it buzzed. "Mallory." I looked at the screen for a second before opening it. One message, then another, then another. I opened the first. "We're waiting for the paperwork." Second, "Stop being selfish for once." Third, "Think about your nephew." I kept reading. "We have a massive housewarming party this Saturday." I paused. Housewarming. In my house. Using my money. Celebrating what they thought they had secured. "And we need this finalized," the last message read. I stared at it for a long second. They weren't worried. They weren't hiding. They were escalating, publicly, confidently, because they thought I had no leverage. I typed back. No hesitation, no explanation, no emotion. One word. Understood. I hit send. Then I set the phone down. That was it. No argument, no pushback. Just enough to keep them comfortable. Because the moment they feel resistance, they adjust, and I didn't want them adjusting. I wanted them exactly where they were. Planning, spending, inviting people. Building the perfect stage. I leaned back in the chair and exhaled slowly. Everything was in place now. Evidence, timeline, intent, and a date. Saturday, they picked it, not me, which made it even better, because they had no idea what they were walking into. I stood up and grabbed my jacket. There was still work to do, reports to finalize, contacts to line up. But the hardest part, that was already done. Understanding the situation, accepting it, deciding what to do. Now it was just execution, clean, precise, final. And as the week moved forward, I stayed completely silent, letting them move ahead with their plans, completely unaware that every step they took was leading them straight toward something they couldn't undo. I parked 2 houses down and adjusted the collar of my dress uniform. Dark blue, pressed, metals aligned, rank clear, major. I stepped out of the car and closed the door softly. The neighborhood looked normal, quiet, clean. Cars lined up neatly along the curb, like nothing had changed. Like there wasn't a fraud case sitting inside that house. I walked up the driveway without rushing. Each step, measured, controlled. The front door was already open. Of course it was. People were moving in and out, caterers, event staff, boxes, decorations. Mallory didn't do small. She did spectacle. I stepped inside. No one stopped me. A few people glanced over, not at my face, at the uniform. That always gets attention, respect, curiosity, sometimes discomfort. Today, useful. The house was louder now, brighter, full of motion, flowers everywhere, catering trays lined up along the kitchen, someone testing music in the living room. They turned my house into a stage. I walked through it slowly, taking it in, same layout, different life. I didn't see Mallory at first, but I didn't need to look long. Wow, she said behind me. I turned. She was standing at the edge of the hallway, dressed like she was hosting a magazine shoot. Perfect hair, perfect makeup, perfect smile, the kind that doesn't reach the eyes. Didn't expect you to actually show up, she said. I said I would, I replied. She looked me up and down. Nice uniform, she added. Very dramatic. I didn't react. Because comments like that aren't meant to land. They're meant to test. How's everything coming along, I asked. She smiled wider. Great. Once we get the paperwork done, everything's perfect. There it was again, paperwork. Always the same focus. Mom's in the study, she said. We've been waiting. Of course they had. I nodded once and walked past her. No hesitation. The study door was closed. I knocked once, then opened it. My mother was inside, sitting behind the desk. Mahogany, not mine. New. Everything in that room was new. Except the intent. Close the door, she said. I stepped in and closed it behind me. Then I heard the click. Locked. Mallory stepped in after me. Now it was 3 of us. Small room, no witnesses. Controlled environment, they planned this. I stayed standing, didn't take the chair. My mother didn't waste time. She reached into a folder and pulled out a document, placed it on the desk, then slid it toward me. Retroactive consent form, she said. I looked down at it, didn't touch it yet. Just a formality, Mallory added from behind me. Cleans everything up. Cleans everything up. That's one way to say it. I picked up the paper and read it, line by line, carefully, because details matter. It was exactly what I expected. A legal attempt to validate the forged transfer, to make it look like I agreed, after the fact. If I sign this, everything they did becomes legitimate. The fraud disappears, the debt stays with me, and they walk away clean. I set the paper back down, slowly. No, I said. One word, clear, final. Mallory's tone changed instantly. Don't do this, she said. We've already built everything around this house. I didn't respond. My mother leaned forward slightly. Her voice stayed calm, too calm. If you don't sign this, she said, we will call your base commander. I looked at her, didn't blink. She continued. We will tell him you are financially abusing your family, she said. That you've been unstable since your deployment. Mallory crossed her arms. We'll tell them everything, she added. paranoia, erratic behavior, all of it. My mother nodded. Your career will be over by the end of the day. Silence, heavy, deliberate. They were watching me closely now, waiting for the reaction, fear, panic, anything. I gave them nothing, because I've heard worse threats from people with actual leverage. This was noise, but it told me everything I needed to know. There was no hesitation left in them, no line they wouldn't cross. They had already committed fraud. Now they were escalating to blackmail against a federal officer, in writing, in person, and verbally. I let a few seconds pass, just enough. Then I looked at both of them, really looked. And that's when it settled completely. There was nothing left here, no family, no loyalty, no hesitation. Just two people trying to protect what they stole, using whatever they had, even if it meant destroying me. I felt something shift again, not anger, not even disappointment. Just distance, clean separation, like cutting a wire. I smiled, not wide, not friendly, just enough to register. Mallory frowned. What, she asked. I reached into my uniform pocket. Slow, deliberate, pulled out my phone, screen already on, recording. I tapped it once, stopped it. The silence in the room changed instantly. You've been talking for 20 minutes, I said quietly. No one moved. My mother's eyes flicked to the phone. Mallory's expression shifted, just slightly. First crack. You can't end my career, I said. My voice stayed low, even, controlled. Then I looked directly at my mother and finished it. But you just ended your own lives. No yelling, no emphasis, just truth. For a second, no one spoke, because they understood. Not emotionally, logically. Everything they just said was now evidence. Blackmail, intent, threat, documented. Mallory took a step forward. You're bluffing, she said. I didn't respond, didn't need to, because bluffing requires uncertainty. This wasn't that. This was done. I turned, unlocked the door, opened it, and walked out. The noise of the house came back instantly. Music, voices, movement, like nothing had happened. But everything had. My boots hit the hardwood floor in sharp, steady clicks. Each step echoed, controlled, final. I walked past the kitchen, past the catering setup, past the people who had no idea they were standing inside a crime scene. No one stopped me. No one asked questions. They saw the uniform. They stepped aside. I reached the front door, opened it, stepped outside. The air felt different now, cooler, clearer. I pulled my phone up as I walked down the driveway, scrolled once, stopped, then raised it to my ear. No hesitation, no second thought, because this wasn't a decision anymore. It was a procedure, and I was about to make the one call that would change everything. I stepped onto the sidewalk and tapped the contact I had queued up. Not local police, not a non-emergency line. Federal. The call rang once, twice. Then a voice picked up. Calm, direct, Financial Crimes Division. I didn't waste time. This is Major Audrey Hayes, U.S. Army Intelligence, I said. I'm reporting active bank fraud, wire fraud, and identity theft committed against me while deployed. There was a short pause. Professional, controlled. Go ahead, Major. I walked slowly toward my car as I spoke. My property was transferred via a forged quitclaim deed while I was stationed overseas, I said. A home equity line of credit was opened against it. $250,000 has already been drawn and spent. I opened the car door and sat down. Closed it. Quiet again. I have full documentation, I continued. Deployment records proving I was out of the country on the notarization date. Financial records showing the transfers. And a recorded blackmail attempt made within the last 30 minutes. Another pause, shorter this time. Do you have a secure way to transmit the evidence, the agent asked? Yes, stand by. I'm sending you an encrypted upload link. My phone buzzed almost immediately. I opened the message. Secure portal, verified. I didn't hesitate. I'm uploading now, I said. I placed the phone on the dashboard and opened my laptop. Hotspot on, connection stable. I dragged the folder labeled Evidence into the upload window. Every file, every document. The deed, the credit reports, transaction logs, screenshots, deployment records, audio file, all of it. The progress bar moved steadily. No interruptions, no errors. Upload complete, I said. Receive, the agent replied. Silence for a few seconds. I could hear faint keyboard movement on the other end. Fast, efficient. Then Major Hayes, he said. Stay on the line. I leaned back in the seat, watched the house in front of me. People were still moving inside, laughing, setting things up, completely unaware. The agent came back. "This is substantial," he said. "The forged deed alone is enough. The notarization discrepancy confirms it." I didn't respond. He continued. "The financial trail is clean. The HELOC was opened under your identity. Funds were distributed quickly, which indicates intent to liquidate. I already knew that, but hearing it out loud mattered. This also involves a federally insured financial institution," he added. "And you were on active deployment. That elevates this significantly?" "Exactly. What happens next?" I asked. His answer was immediate. "We initiate a federal fraud investigation," he said. "Effective now, no delay, no hesitation. We are also notifying the bank's fraud division," he continued. "They will take immediate action on all associated accounts." I watched a catering van pull into the driveway. 2 workers stepped out. Boxes in hand, they looked relaxed, normal. They had no idea. "How fast?" I asked. The agent didn't pause. "Minutes." I nodded once. "Understood." Another short silence. Then Major Hayes, he said, "You did the right thing calling us directly. This is not a civil matter. This is criminal." I ended the call, set the phone down, and waited. No music, no movement, just stillness. Because once the process starts, you don't interfere. You let it run. I glanced at the time. Clock started. Inside the house, things were ramping up. More cars pulling in, decorations being adjusted, final touches. Mallory loved timing. Everything had to be perfect. She just picked the wrong day. 10 minutes, 15, 20, my phone buzzed. "Unknown number," I answered. "Major Hayes." "Yes, this is the fraud department from your lending institution," the voice said. "We've received a federal notification regarding your account." That was fast. "Yes," I said. "We are initiating an immediate review," the representative continued. "Please confirm, did you authorize a home equity line of credit in the amount of $250,000, number understood, typing, fast." "We are freezing the account pending investigation," she said. "All associated transactions are being flagged." "Thank you." I ended the call, looked back at the house. A black SUV pulled up. 2 women stepped out, dressed for a party, smiling. They walked inside without a second thought. 25 minutes, 30. My phone buzzed again. Different number. I answered. "Major Hayes, this is federal coordination. We're confirming receipt of your case file." "Confirmed." "We are expanding the scope," the voice said. "Additional accounts linked to the subjects are being identified." Subjects, not family, not names. Subjects. That shift mattered. "We will be applying a full financial hold," he continued. "All liquid assets, credit lines, and associated instruments." "How long?" I asked. "Processing now." I leaned my head back slightly, closed my eyes for a second, not to rest, just to mark the moment, because this is where control changes hands, from personal to systemic. I opened my eyes again. 40 minutes. Inside the house, music started playing, louder now. Guests were arriving faster. Laughter, movement, energy. Mallory's event was coming together, right on schedule. My phone buzzed again. Same federal line. I answered. "It's done," the voice said. "Simple, final. All accounts tied to the subjects have been frozen under federal mandate," he continued. "Credit cards, bank accounts, lines of credit. All access is suspended pending investigation." 45 minutes. Exactly. I looked at the house, lights on, people inside, everything still moving, but not for long. "Understood," I said. "We'll be in contact," he added. The call ended. I set the phone down slowly and just sat there, because this is where most people react. Celebrate. Get emotional. I didn't. Because this wasn't the end. This was just the first move. Inside that house, every dollar they thought they had was gone. Every card in their wallet useless. Every account locked. They just didn't know it yet. I watched as another luxury car pulled into the driveway. Valet stepped forward. Door opened. Guests stepped out, dressed up, smiling, walking straight into a situation that was about to collapse in real time. And as the flow of cars increased and the front door kept opening and closing, I stayed exactly where I was, knowing that the moment those transactions started failing, everything inside would begin to unravel all at once. I watched the front door swing open and closed as the house filled up. Champagne glasses, laughter, music just loud enough to feel expensive. Mallory did what she always does. She curated a moment. From where I was parked, I could see silhouettes moving through the living room. People gathering in clusters, drinks in hand. Smiles that come easy when everything looks perfect on the surface. They had no idea. I checked the time, right on schedule. A large catering truck pulled up and parked along the curb, branded high-end. The kind of company that doesn't show up unless they're fully paid. 2 men stepped out first. Then a woman in a black blazer followed, clipboard in hand. Manager. She walked straight to the front door, professional, focused. Inside, the energy shifted slightly. Staff began organizing trays, bringing in equipment, setting up for the main event. This was the moment Mallory had been building toward. Presentation, status, validation. I leaned forward slightly, resting my arms on the steering wheel, and waited. A few minutes passed. Then I saw them. Mallory and the catering manager standing near the kitchen island, talking. Mallory was smiling, confident, relaxed. She handed over a card. Platinum, of course. The manager took it, ran it through the handheld terminal. Pause. Small, barely noticeable. Then she looked up, said something. Mallory's smile didn't drop yet. She waved a hand like it was nothing. Probably said something like, "Try it again." The manager did. Second attempt. Longer pause this time. Then head shake. Subtle but clear. Mallory's posture changed instantly. Shoulders stiff, smile gone. She took the terminal herself. Pressed a few buttons. Tried again. Declined. I could see it even from here. The exact moment confidence turns into confusion. She pulled out a second card. Handed it over. Quick. Impatient. The manager ran it. Same result. Declined. Mallory's head snapped slightly to the side, like she was trying to process it faster than reality could update. I watched her mouth move. Short sentences now. Sharp. The manager stayed calm. Professional. But I could see it. Distance. That shift where a vendor realizes something isn't right. Inside, a few guests had started paying attention. Not openly, but you can feel it. Energy shifts. People notice. Mallory turned and called for my mother. Beatrice appeared within seconds, still composed, still carrying herself like everything was under control. Mallory said something quickly, low, urgent. Beatrice didn't react right away. She just reached into her purse, pulled out a card, handed it over, same routine. Swipe, pause, declined. The manager said something longer this time, more formal, more careful. Beatrice's expression tightened. Just slightly, she took the terminal, tried again herself, declined. She pulled out another card, then another, same result. Over and over, declined. The words started echoing through the room without being spoken out loud. Declined, declined, declined. Guests were definitely watching now. Whispers started. Small at first, then spreading. Mallory grabbed her phone, fast, angry typing. Then she held it to her ear, waiting longer than she expected. Then her posture shifted again. Rigid, still, listening. I didn't need to hear it to know what she was hearing. Automated voice. Your account is currently under federal review. She lowered the phone slowly, looked at my mother, said something I couldn't hear, but I could read it. What is happening? Beatrice took her own phone out. Dialed, waited. Same result. She didn't even finish the call. She ended it early because she understood. Not emotionally, mechanically. This wasn't a glitch. This was systemic. The catering manager stepped back. Professional distance now. I'm sorry, she said clear enough I could almost hear it through the glass. We can't proceed without payment. Mallory's reaction was immediate. Hands out, frustrated. Trying to explain. Trying to negotiate. But it didn't matter. Because this wasn't a misunderstanding. This was a shutdown. The manager gave a short nod to her staff. And just like that, they stopped setting up, started packing, trays lifted, equipment closed, boxes sealed, right there, in front of everyone. The room went from celebration to confusion in under 60 seconds. Guests started talking openly now, phones coming out, messages being sent. Mallory's voice got louder, not controlled anymore, sharp, desperate, trying to hold the room together, but you can't hold something that's already breaking. Beatrice stood still for a moment. Then she did something predictable. She reached for control. Public control. She opened her phone, went to Facebook. I knew exactly what she was about to do. She typed fast, emotionally, no filter, posted. I felt my phone buzz almost immediately. Notification. I opened it. There it was, her post. My cruel daughter Audrey has hacked our accounts to ruin her nephew's special day. We are under attack. I read it once, then again, still calm, still measured. Because this was perfect. Not the accusation, the timing, public, emotional, unverified. Exactly what I needed. I opened my folder, selected one file, the county record, the forged deed, highlighted the date, October 14th. Then I pulled up my deployment orders. Same date, different country. I took a clean screenshot, clear, simple, undeniable. Then I replied, directly under her post. No explanation, no caption, just the image. I hit send and leaned back. 'Cause now, it wasn't private anymore. Within seconds, the comments started. At first, confusion. What is this? Is that real? Then realization. People reading, comparing, connecting the dots. Wait, she was deployed. That signature? This looks like fraud. The tone changed fast, faster than I expected. Because once people see evidence, they don't need a story. They build their own. Inside the house, phones were coming out everywhere. Guests checking, reading, looking up, looking at Mallory, at Beatrice. The energy collapsed. Not slowly, instantly. Mallory grabbed someone's phone, scrolled. Her face changed. Color drained. Control gone. She looked at my mother, panicked now. Real panic. Beatrice tried to speak, tried to regain control, but it was too late. Because reputation doesn't break quietly, it shatters. Loud, messy, public. Guests started leaving, one by one. Then in groups. No announcements, no goodbyes. Just quiet exits. Because no one wants to be present when the truth shows up. I sat in my car and watched it all unfold. No movement, no reaction, just observation. Because this wasn't the end. Not yet. Mallory stepped outside suddenly, phone in hand, looking around, trying to find something, someone, control. But there was nothing left to grab. And as her voice rose into something unrecognizable and the last of the guests started pulling away from this curb, she had no idea that the next set of lights turning onto the street weren't there for the party at all. I watched the front of the house as the street filled with red and blue. Not fast, not chaotic, measured, controlled. 2 black SUVs turned the corner first. Then a third. Lights flashing but no sirens. Clean approach. No warning. Behind them a marked vehicle. Military police. I exhaled slowly. Right on time. Inside the house the damage was already done. Guests were clustered in small groups. Phones out, heads close together, whispering, comparing screens. The screenshot was everywhere now. You could feel it in the way people stood. Distance, caution, judgment. Mallory was near the center of the room, still trying to hold control. Her voice carried, sharp, fractured. "This is a misunderstanding," she said. "Everyone just relax." No one relaxed. Because when people smell fraud, they don't lean in. They step back. Beatrice stood near the kitchen, posture rigid. Eyes scanning, calculating, looking for a way to recover something that was already gone. And Winston. He was by the wall, hands in his pockets, head slightly down. He looked smaller than I remembered. Mallory turned on him. "Do something," she snapped. "Say something." He didn't move, didn't even look up, just stood there, silent. That kind of silence says more than anything else. It says he knows, and he knows there's no fixing it. Outside, the vehicles stopped. Doors opened. 4 federal agents stepped out. Dark windbreakers. Bold letters across the back. FBI. 2 military police officers followed. Uniforms sharp. Presence clear. They didn't rush. Didn't shout. They walked. Straight up the driveway. Straight to the door. Inside, someone noticed. Then another. The murmur shifted. Tone changed. Lower. Tighter. Because instinct kicks in before logic. People feel authority before they understand it. The front doors opened. Not gently, not dramatically, just enough, then held open. The agents stepped inside. One by one, calm, direct, focused. The music cut off mid-track, like someone hit a switch. Silence dropped over the room, heavy, immediate. No one moved, because now everyone understood. This wasn't a misunderstanding. This was official. The lead agent stepped forward. Mid-40s, clean, controlled. The kind of presence that doesn't need volume. He scanned the room once, found them. Mallory, Beatrice. He walked straight toward them. No hesitation. Mallory stepped forward. Instinct. Control. She put on that same expression she always uses. Confident. Slightly annoyed. "Excuse me," she said. "This is a private event. You're trespassing." The agent didn't slow down. Didn't react. Didn't even blink. He stopped directly in front of her. Pulled out a document. Held it at chest level. Then spoke. Clear. Loud enough for the entire room. "Mallory Hayes," he said. "You are under investigation for bank fraud, wire fraud, and aggravated identity theft." The words hit the room like a shockwave. People froze. Phones lowered. No one spoke. He turned slightly. "Beatrice Hayes," he continued. "You are being charged under the same federal statutes." Mallory laughed. Short, sharp. "That's ridiculous," she said. "You have no idea what you're talking about." The agent didn't respond to her. He stepped forward. "Turn around," he said. Simple, final. Mallory didn't move, not at first, because people like her don't process loss of control quickly. They resist, even when it's over. "This is insane," she said louder now. "You can't just walk in here and turn around," he repeated. Same tone, same volume, no escalation. That's what makes it land. Beatrice moved first. Not forward, back. Small step. Then another, eyes darting, looking for an exit. Any exit. She turned toward the hallway, quick, desperate. She didn't make it 3 steps. One of the agents moved, fast, controlled, hand on her arm, firm. "Ma'am, stop." She struggled, just enough to show panic, not enough to matter. Within seconds, her hands were behind her back. Cuffs out, metal, cold, locked. The sound echoed, sharp, final. The room reacted. Gasps, whispers, phones back up. Recording now. Mallory stood there, frozen, watching it happen. Because this wasn't something she could talk her way out of. Not anymore. "Mom," she said. Voice different now, smaller. The agent in front of her stepped closer. "Turn around," he said again. She looked at him, then at the room. All those people watching, judging, recording. Everything she built. Right there, collapsing. She didn't argue this time. Slowly, she turned. Hands moved behind her back. The cuffs went on. Same sound, same finality. No drama. No shouting, just procedure. The agent read her rights. Calm, clear, routine. Mallory didn't say anything. Not a word. Because there was nothing left to say. Beatrice was already being guided toward the door. Mallory followed, step by step. Heels against hardwood, then concrete, then outside. The crowd parted without being told. Because no one wants to stand in the way of that. Not when it's real. Not when it's federal. Winston stayed where he was. Didn't move. Didn't speak. Just watched them go. I watched from the car. Didn't get out. Didn't step in. Didn't need to. Because this part was never about confrontation. It was about consequence. The agents escorted them down the driveway, lights flashing, red and blue reflecting off everything, the house, the cars, the faces. Mallory looked up once, just once, eyes scanning, and for a second, they landed in my direction. I didn't move, didn't react, just watched. Because now she understood, not emotionally, not fully, but enough. This wasn't a misunderstanding. This wasn't a family argument. This was over. They were placed into separate vehicles, doors closed, engines running, no delay, no hesitation. The convoy moved, pulled away from the curb. And just like that, they were gone. The street stayed lit for a few seconds longer. Then the lights disappeared around the corner. Silence came back. Different now, heavier. The guests didn't stay. They left, fast. No conversations, no goodbyes, just exits. Because no one wants to explain why they were there. The house emptied out in minutes. The same place that had been full of noise, energy, and performance was now quiet, still, exposed. And as the last car pulled away and the front door hung slightly open, I sat there a moment longer knowing that what came next wouldn't be loud or public, but it would be permanent. I stood on the sidewalk and looked at the house again. Same structure, same driveway, same front door. But it felt different now. Quiet, empty, clean in a way it hadn't been before. A few weeks had passed, not long, just enough time for the system to do what it does. Charges filed, evidence processed, statements taken, everything moved exactly how it should. No shortcuts, no confusion. Mallory and my mother were both out on bail, temporarily, waiting. 5 to 10 years was the range being discussed. Federal time, not flexible, not negotiable. And Winston, he tried. Lawyers, consultations, retainers, everything expensive, everything urgent, everything too late. By the end of the second week, he had drained what little he had left trying to keep up. Now he was quiet. Completely. Same as always, just more visible. The HELOC gone, wiped. Fraud confirmed, removed from my credit. Every record corrected, every account restored. The deed back where it belonged, my name, clean, permanent. I adjusted the sleeve of my uniform and walked up the driveway. Not rushed, not slow, just steady. A county sheriff stood near the front door, clipboard in hand, professional. Neutral, Major Hayes, he said with a nod. Sheriff, I replied. He glanced at the paperwork. We're cleared to proceed, he said. I nodded once. Let's do it. Before we moved, I noticed her. Beatrice, standing on the lawn, off to the side, not composed anymore, not controlled. Her hair was different, less structured. Her posture collapsed. She looked smaller, older, like something had been stripped away. She stepped forward when she saw me. Fast, too fast, Audrey, she said. Her voice broke on my name. That was new. I stopped. Didn't step back. Didn't move closer. Just stood there. She came closer anyway. Eyes red. Face wet. Real tears. Not calculated. Not controlled. Real. We're your family, she said. The words came out uneven, desperate. How could you do this? She asked. How could you leave us with nothing? I looked at her. Really looked. Because this was the first honest moment she'd had in a long time. Not honest in truth. Honest in exposure. No performance left. No strategy. Just consequence. I let a second pass. Then I spoke. You demanded my house for the golden child, I said. My voice stayed even. No rise. No edge. Just clear. She shook her head. No, that's not. I didn't stop her. I just continued. Now you have nothing, I said. That landed. She froze. Like the sentence needed a second to process. I'm not punishing you, I added. I held her gaze. I'm just letting you pay the bill. Silence. She opened her mouth again. Nothing came out. Because there wasn't anything left to say. Not after everything. Not after the documents, the charges, the arrests, the public collapse. There was no version of this where she could rewrite it. I turned away, no hesitation, walked past her, up to the front door. The sheriff stepped forward and unlocked it. We entered together. The house smelled different again. Neutral, empty, no candles, no artificial sweetness, just air. Most of their things were already gone. What was left was being processed. Boxes near the wall, tagged, ready for removal. The sheriff moved through the checklist. Standard procedure, inventory, verification, final confirmation. I walked through the house slowly, room by room. Everything was back the way it should be. Not visually, not yet, but structurally, legally. It was mine again. No questions, no complications, no one else's name tied to it. Just mine. I stepped into the living room, paused, looked around. This is where the party had collapsed, where everything shifted, where their version of reality ended. Now it was quiet, still, like nothing had ever happened. The sheriff approached. All remaining property will be removed today, he said. After that, access is terminated. I nodded. Understood. He handed me the final document. I signed it. Clean, simple, no hesitation. Then he stepped back. House is secured, he said. That was it. No ceremony, no announcement, just done. I walked to the front door, stepped outside. Beatrice was still there. Same spot, same expression, but she didn't move this time. Didn't speak. She just watched. I reached for the door, paused for half a second, then closed it, locked it. The sound was quiet, but final. No more access, no more entry, not just to the house, to me. I turned and walked back down the driveway. Didn't look back. Didn't need to. Because closure doesn't require confirmation, it just requires action. A week later, I was back on base. Routine restored, structure intact, work waiting, briefings, reports, movement, everything where it should be. I was called into my commander's office. Short meeting, direct, promotion confirmed. Effective immediately, major to the next level, no complications, no questions. Because my record was clean, always had been. I walked out of that office with the same steady pace I've always had. Nothing dramatic, just forward. Later that evening, I sat alone in my quarters, quiet, controlled, and for the first time in weeks, still, no noise, no conflict, no distractions, just clarity. And that's when I thought about everything, not emotionally, not in fragments, just as a whole. Because this wasn't about revenge. Not really. It was about boundaries, about understanding what happens when you don't enforce them, and what happens when you finally do. I leaned back slightly and looked straight ahead, like I was talking to someone sitting across from me, because in a way, I was. Loyalty to a toxic family, I said slowly, is just a slow form of suicide. I let that sit, no rush. When they show you that your life is just a resource for their comfort, I continued, believe them, simple, direct, no explanation needed. And then, cut the cord. I exhaled once, steady, because that's the part people struggle with, not seeing it, not understanding it, doing something about it. I leaned forward slightly, rested my arms on my knees. If you've ever had to protect yourself from your own family, I said, you already know what that feels like. Pause, short, real, drop a comment. Then I added one last line, calm, certain. Your boundaries are your armor. I didn't walk away from that situation thinking I won. That's not how this works. I walked away understanding something most people spend years trying to avoid. Not every family is worth saving. That's uncomfortable to hear. I get that. Because we're raised a certain way. Family comes first. Blood is everything. You forgive, you tolerate, you adjust. And if something feels wrong, you tell yourself it's temporary, that it'll get better, that you just need to be patient. That mindset. It's exactly how situations like mine happen, because nothing in my story started with fraud. It started small, subtle, easy to ignore. My sister using my things without asking. My mother speaking over me like my decisions didn't carry weight. Conversations where I was always expected to be the reasonable one, the calm one, the one who doesn't escalate. And I let it slide. Not because I didn't notice, because I didn't think it mattered. That was the mistake. Because when you ignore small boundary violations, you don't keep the peace. You train people. You teach them how far they can go. And once they realize there's no consequence, they go further. That's what I call entitlement creep. It doesn't show up all at once. It builds. First they expect access, then they assume it, then they depend on it, and eventually they feel entitled to it. By the time it reaches that point, they're not asking anymore. They're taking. And in their mind it makes sense, because you never stopped them before. That's the part people don't want to admit. Sometimes the situation you're in didn't just happen to you. It was shaped over time by what you allowed. That doesn't mean you caused it, but it does mean you have to recognize your role in not stopping it earlier. That realization matters, because if you don't see it, you repeat it. I also learned something else. Words don't mean anything without behavior behind them. My mother told me she loved me. My sister told me we were family, but when it came down to it, they used my name, my property, my financial identity. That's not love. That's utility. And there's a difference. People who respect you don't put you in positions where you have to protect yourself from them. They don't create problems and expect you to absorb the consequences. They don't weaponize your loyalty. So if someone says they care about you, but their actions consistently put you at a disadvantage, believe the pattern, not the words. Another thing I learned, you don't need to react emotionally to be effective. When I walked into that house and saw everything had changed, I could have yelled. I could have argued. I could have tried to force them to see reason. None of that would have helped. Because people who are already committed to taking from you don't respond to logic in that moment. They respond to resistance. And if your resistance is emotional, they use it against you. That's why I stayed quiet. Not because I was weak, because I was calculating. I needed information more than I needed to be heard. And that decision changed everything. That pause gave me clarity. Clarity gave me direction, and direction gave me control. Most people lose control because they react too fast. They want to fix it immediately, confront it immediately, feel better immediately. But situations like this, they require distance. You need to step back long enough to understand what you're actually dealing with. Because once you act, you can't take it back. I also stopped seeing the situation as personal. That's another shift people struggle with. When someone close to you does something like this, your instinct is to take it personally, to ask why, to look for emotion. But this wasn't emotional, it was strategic. They didn't just wake up and decide to take my house, they planned it. They executed it. They covered it. That's not a breakdown in communication, that's intent. And once you recognize intent, you stop negotiating, you stop explaining, you stop trying to fix something that was never meant to be fair. You move differently. That's when the situation stopped being about family for me and started being about structure, facts, proof, process. Because systems don't care about emotions, they respond to evidence. And that's exactly what I gave them. Looking back now, the most important lesson isn't about what they did. It's about what I allowed before it ever got to that point. Because boundaries aren't about reacting when things go wrong. They're about preventing things from getting that far in the first place. If I had enforced smaller boundaries earlier, that situation never escalates to fraud. But that's how learning works. You don't always see the full picture until something forces you to. And once you do, you don't ignore it again. So if you're watching this and something feels off in your own life, not dramatic, not extreme, just off, pay attention to that. Don't wait for it to turn into something bigger, because it will. People don't suddenly change their behavior under pressure, they reveal it. And when they do, you need to decide what you're willing to tolerate, not what you hope will change, not what you think you can manage, what you are actually willing to accept. Because at the end of the day, you don't lose family in situations like this. You identify who they really are. And once you see that clearly, you can't unsee it. The only question left is what you're going to do with that information. I didn't get lucky. That's the first thing I want to make clear. What happened didn't resolve itself because I stayed calm or because the truth came out. It worked because I had systems in place and I knew how to use them. Most people don't think about protection until something goes wrong. By then you're already behind. So if there's one thing you take from this part, it's this: you don't prepare when there's a problem. You prepare before one shows up. Let's start with the simplest layer, your credit. If someone can open a line of credit in your name without you knowing, you're exposed. I don't care how much you trust the people around you. Trust doesn't stop fraud. Systems do. Check your credit regularly, not once a year, monthly. Set it on your calendar if you have to. Set up alerts for new accounts. Every major bureau offers it. It takes minutes to activate. And if you're not actively applying for loans or credit cards, freeze your credit. That one step alone shuts down most unauthorized activity. People think it's complicated. It's not. What's complicated is cleaning it up after the damage is done. Next, documentation. I can't stress this enough. If you own something, you should be able to prove it instantly. Property records, purchase documents, account statements, keep them organized. Not in a random folder. Structured, backed up, accessible. Because when something goes wrong, you don't get time to gather information slowly. You need it ready. The reason I moved quickly is because I didn't have to look for anything. I already had it. That's what gave me speed. And in situations like this, speed matters. Now let's talk about awareness. Most people assume fraud comes from strangers. It doesn't. It comes from access. The people closest to you know your habits, your patterns, your blind spots. They know what you won't question. That's why internal fraud is harder to detect. So you need to shift how you think. Access should never be unlimited, even with family, especially with family. If someone is living in your property, there should be structure, clear expectations, defined limits, not just verbal, written. People avoid this because it feels uncomfortable, like you're treating family like tenants. But here's the reality. When things are clear, relationships stay intact. When things are vague, people fill in the gaps with what benefits them. And that's where problems start. Now let's talk about something people get wrong all the time. Handling things internally. I hear this constantly. It's family. I'll deal with it privately. That works for disagreements. It does not work for crimes. The moment someone crosses into fraud, theft, identity misuse, it's no longer personal. It's legal. And the longer you delay involving the right system, the harder it becomes to fix. I didn't call local police for a reason. They would have treated it as a dispute, back and forth, statements, delays. That's not what this was. This was federal. So I went directly to the level that matched the crime. That's not escalation, that's alignment. You need to understand where your situation belongs, because if you take it to the wrong place, you lose time. And time is leverage. Another thing, people struggle with guilt. That's the biggest weakness in situations like this. Not lack of intelligence, not lack of resources, guilt. We're family, you're overreacting. Don't make this bigger than it is. Those lines are not emotional, they're strategic. They're used to keep you from acting. Because once you act, control shifts. So they apply pressure, not physically, emotionally. And if you respond to that, you stay stuck. Here's the truth. If someone needs to use guilt to control your decisions, they already know they're in the wrong. You don't need to argue with them. You need to recognize the pattern and move past it. I didn't debate with my sister. I didn't try to convince my mother, because I understood something simple. People who are benefiting from the situation have no incentive to fix it. So why would I waste time trying to change their perspective? Instead, I focused on what I could control. Documentation, evidence, execution, that's it. No extra steps, no emotional detours. Now let's talk about mindset. Because all of this only works if you think clearly under pressure. And that doesn't happen by accident. You have to train it. You have to get comfortable with pausing instead of reacting. With stepping back instead of jumping in. That's hard, especially when it's personal. But it's necessary, because the moment you react without thinking, you give up your advantage. You say things you can't take back. You make moves you can't reverse. You show your position too early. And once that happens, you're playing from behind. Everything I did worked because I moved after I understood the full situation, not before. So if you're ever in something similar, slow down, not to avoid action, but to make sure your action actually works. At the end of the day, protecting yourself isn't about being paranoid. It's about being prepared. It's about understanding that trust is not a system. It's a risk. And if you don't have anything in place to manage that risk, you're relying on other people's behavior to stay consistent. That's not control. That's hope. And hope is not a strategy. You don't need to assume the worst in people, but you do need to be ready for it. Because when something like this happens, you won't rise to the level of your expectations. You'll fall to the level of your preparation, and that's what determines the outcome. I didn't rebuild my life after that. I corrected it. There's a difference. Nothing in my situation required me to start over. It required me to remove what didn't belong. That's what boundaries actually do. They don't create distance for no reason. They remove what's already damaging you. Most people misunderstand that. They think boundaries are about explaining yourself, about getting the other person to agree, about making things fair. That's not how it works. Boundaries are not what you say. They are what you enforce. You can explain yourself perfectly and still be ignored. You can justify your position and still be pushed. Because people don't respond to explanations, they respond to consequences. That's the part most people avoid, because consequences feel harsh, especially with family. But without consequences, a boundary is just a suggestion. And suggestions don't protect anything. When I walked out of that house, I didn't announce a boundary. I enforced one. No access, no discussion, no negotiation. That's why it worked. Not because it was dramatic, because it was final. Another mistake people make is thinking boundaries need to be emotional to be real. They don't. In fact, the more emotional you are, the easier it is for someone to push back. Because now you're reacting. And when you react, you reveal where you're vulnerable. That's where people apply pressure. So I stayed calm, not for appearance, for control. Calm doesn't mean you don't care. It means you're not giving someone leverage over your decisions. I also want to talk about consequences, because people confuse consequences with revenge. They're not the same thing. Revenge is emotional. It's about making someone feel what you felt. Consequences are structural. They're about allowing actions to lead to outcomes. I didn't punish my sister. I didn't punish my mother. I reported a crime. And the system responded. That's not personal. That's process. The same applies in smaller situations. If someone disrespects your time, you limit their access to it. If someone misuses your trust, you stop extending it. You don't need to escalate. You just need to adjust. That's what consequences look like in real life. Simple, consistent, clear. Now let's address something that confuses a lot of people. Forgiveness. You can forgive someone and still never allow them back into your life. Those are two separate decisions. Forgiveness is internal. It's about releasing the need to hold on to what happened. Access is external. It's about deciding who gets to be part of your life moving forward. You don't owe both. And mixing them up is how people end up in the same situation over and over again. I don't carry anger about what happened. I don't replay it. I don't need to. But I also don't reopen doors that were closed for a reason. That's not cold. That's consistent. Another thing I want to be clear about: you don't need to win arguments. You don't need to prove your point emotionally. You don't need to make the other person understand. That's a trap, because it keeps you engaged in something that doesn't benefit you. If someone is committed to misunderstanding you, no explanation will fix that. So stop trying. Focus on what actually matters: your position, your stability, your future. Those are the only things you're responsible for protecting. Everything else is optional. When I made my decisions, I didn't ask myself how it would look. I asked myself what it would cost me if I didn't act. That's the question most people avoid, because the answer is uncomfortable, but it's necessary. Because if the cost of staying silent is higher than the cost of acting, then you already know what needs to happen. You just haven't admitted it yet. I also wanted to talk about identity, because this is where everything connects. Who you are is not defined by what you say you believe. It's defined by what you tolerate. If you tolerate disrespect, you become someone who lives with it. If you tolerate manipulation, you become someone who adapts to it, not because that's who you are, but because that's what your environment reinforces. So if you want a different outcome, you don't just think differently, you enforce differently. That's what changes everything. You don't need to be aggressive. You don't need to be confrontational. You just need to be consistent. Clear decisions, clear actions, no mixed signals. Because mixed signals create openings, and openings get used. Now, if you've made it this far, I'm going to say something directly. If you've ever been in a situation where you had to choose between keeping the peace and protecting yourself, you already know how heavy that decision is. It doesn't feel good. It doesn't feel clean, but it's necessary. Because choosing yourself is not selfish. It's responsible. You are responsible for your life, your stability, your future. No one else is going to protect those things for you. And the moment you expect someone else to, you give up control. So don't wait until something breaks to take this seriously. Pay attention early. Set boundaries early. Enforce them early. Because prevention is always easier than correction. If this story made something click for you, if it made you rethink something you've been ignoring, stay here. Subscribe to the channel. Because everything we talk about comes down to one thing: learning how to think clearly, act with precision, and protect what actually matters. That's how you move forward. And that's how you make sure you never end up in a situation like this again.